my name is Sydney. Welcome to or welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to be talking about some of the most popular BookTok books and whether or not I would recommend you guys read them. I believe I have 21 books stacked up over here, and we are going to go through them one by one. All of these books are very, very hyped up all over the BookTok community. We're just going to see whether or not I recommend them to you guys, and I'm not going to dive too deep into the plots of any of these books just because I have 21 books over here and I don't want to overwhelm you guys and make this video, an hour long, because if we're being honest, I could talk about books for days and days, but we're not going to do that, and we're just going to get into the recommendations. First up, we have Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, and I'm sure so many of you guys have already heard about this book, if not read it. I would say yes, I do recommend you guys pick this book up if you haven't already. This book is a very good entry-level fantasy book. There is also some romance, which I love. This book is very easy to binge because I feel like it's fairly fast-paced. If you guys don't know, there are currently 3 books out in this series, and I believe Rebecca Yarros is going to be continuing to release more books. This whole series as a whole is pretty bingeable, and I would 100% recommend it if you guys are looking to get into fantasy. I also believe that this book definitely lives up to all of the hype it gets all over the bookish community, so I 100% think you guys should read this if you haven't picked this up yet. Next up, we have Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This is the first book in a trilogy, and I absolutely loved this trilogy. I love Stephanie Garber's writing, and in my opinion, yes, I would 100% recommend you pick up this book. Very, very fast paced, and I know some people who have read this trilogy may say maybe on picking this book up, but for me, I think that everybody needs to pick this book up because it is giving all of the magical and whimsy vibes, and I just fell in love with the world of Caraval. I fell in love with the little game that our main character was thrown into. I would definitely say that this is more of a atmospherical read, and it's just really fun to see all of the things that go on in the world of Caraval, and it's not much more of an action-packed fantasy series, but this is also a book that I would recommend if you guys are trying to dip your toes into the world of fantasy, just because it's not super hard to understand, and again, it is just such a fun, fast-paced, binge-worthy read along with the other 2 books in this trilogy as well. Going off of Caraval, we have Once Upon a Broken Heart, again by Stephanie Garber. This is a trilogy as well, and it is kind of interconnected with the Caraval trilogy. Some people recommend that you read Caraval before jumping into this, and I would definitely say I am one of those people. I read the Caraval trilogy before picking up the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy to get a little bit more insight into a few of the characters that we see, as well as obviously you are more familiar with the world, but you don't absolutely need to read the Caraval trilogy before this trilogy. I will say a lot of people do like this book and this trilogy more than Caraval. To me, I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion, but I did like Caraval more than I liked this series. But I will say the male main character definitely carries this story. I know a lot of people really, really love him. Again, this is giving all of the magic and whimsy vibes, definitely atmospheric, and there is a really good romance in this story as well. And I don't know, I definitely think I would pick it up just for the vibes. It is still kind of a maybe. Me personally, I would say maybe, but just going off of how much I loved Caraval, I would say yes. The next book I actually don't have. I am loaning it to my mom right now, but that is The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I am sure all of you guys have heard about this book. It is also actually now a movie, which I did really like. I am going to say yes / maybe on this, just because it is very fast paced and I feel like there is a lot going on in the story. So it keeps it more entertaining and kind of keeps you wanting to go back for more. I feel like this is a good book that will help you get out of a reading slump because it is fast paced and there are a lot of twists and turns that happen. I would say yes, and after you read the book, if you haven't already, I would also recommend you go watch the movie. There are definitely a little bit of differences from the book and the movie, but overall I think both of them were really good. Next up, we have a little bit of a controversial one. I know some people really loved this series and some people not so much, but this is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. For me, this first book, I really enjoyed it. The second book in the trilogy, not so much, but the third book did definitely help me get back into the world and realize that, okay, this is definitely a series that I would recommend. But this is a fantasy series, and I would say yes, some people might say maybe, and honestly, I think it depends on your reading taste. The romance and the banter just really hooked me from the beginning of this story. I absolutely loved Peyton and Kai. Again, this book is easy to binge, and I feel like it was very fast-paced, and with the little romance that we get in here as well, I just feel like that added to the story a lot. But this book, yes. The rest of the series, maybe. I would say definitely read this one first, see how you feel, and continue the series. I will say I didn't read the last novella in this series just because I heard a lot of people say that it kind of ruined it all for them. So I will not be reading that, but I would recommend you guys picking this up if you haven't already. Next up, we have Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter, and I would say maybe on this one, just because it really depends on how you feel about YA books. I know some people don't read YA at all, and others really enjoy YA. Me personally, I have definitely stepped away from reading YA books, more specifically YA romances, just because I feel like they are not really anything that I can relate to. Obviously, I am not really in the age range of the authors trying to target the audience. I will say it was fun, and I did enjoy the little romance we get between the two main characters, but again, it was very YA. Obviously, it's a YA book, so that is really why I would say maybe. It kind of just depends on where you fall with reading YA, specifically YA romances. The next book we have is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, and guys, I can't believe how long it took me to read this. I had this book sitting on my shelf for quite some time before I actually ended up picking it up, but I would say yes, I definitely think this is worth the hype, and it is just such beautiful writing. And if I'm being completely honest, this book is kind of like no other book I have ever read. The concept is just so different and unique, which is one of the reasons why I loved it so much. This is a little bit slower paced and definitely more of a character-driven book, and it is also very emotional, but this book was so good. Again, it was so unique. I haven't read anything else like it before, and just based off of that, I think this is definitely a book that you guys should pick up. It is so good, and the writing was just so beautiful. I can't wait to read more books from V.E. Schwab because based off of this, I already know that I like the writing. This next book I actually don't have a physical copy of, which I have been meaning to pick one up ever since I finished reading it on my Kindle, and for some reason I just haven't picked it up yet. But that is Divine Rivals, and I am sure so many of you guys have heard about this book. It's actually a duology, but I'm going to be more specifically talking about Divine Rivals. For me, I would say maybe, and I feel like that might be an unpopular opinion, so I am a little bit scared to say that I may or may not think this kind of deserves the hype that it has gotten. I will say I did enjoy the romance, but it was a little bit slower than I would have liked it to be, especially for a fantasy book. I feel like it was unique. I did like the romance and I liked the writing. Again, I just think since it was a little bit of a slower paced book, and also there wasn't really like any action happening throughout the book, which is something that I do expect when I am going into a fantasy book, and that is just something that this book was lacking for me. Definitely going for the romance, not the fantasy, so I would say depending on your vibe, maybe if you're newer to fantasy, this would be a good book to pick up if you are primarily a romance reader, because I think the romance in this book definitely carried the story. Next up, we have Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Meyer, and I also think that this might be a unpopular opinion, but I would say no. I really don't think this book deserves the hype that everybody has given it, and I feel like I might be in the minority group of people who have read this. I just feel like the idea of it was really good, but for me, it was just lacking in a lot of areas, and I wasn't super interested or even excited to keep on reading the book, and I probably should have DNF'd it, but seeing all of the hype that this book had gotten, I really wanted to finish it because I was really hoping I could see what everybody else was seeing by reading the book, and unfortunately, it never hit me. I will say the humor that was going on in this book I did like, but it didn't really add enough to the story to make me excited about it. And I also feel like for some reason the characters just didn't feel super developed to me. So unfortunately for me, I would say no. Next up, we have one of my all-time favorite books, a part of my all-time favorite series, and that is Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. This is the first book in the Boys of Tommen series. Guys, if you have not read this book, if you guys have not read the whole entire series, I need you to read this book. It is 10 out of 10, so good, infinity stars. I will forever recommend this book, this series in general. It is a sports romance, and it is not heavily focused on the sports aspect. It is definitely very, very emotional, and there are a lot of things that go on in this series. And I definitely think you guys should look up trigger warnings just because there are a lot of heavy topics that are discussed throughout this book. While this book is a little bit longer, I wish it was even longer because I just loved the romance that we had, the relationship between Johnny and Shannon. Guys, I could just read about their whole lives from start to finish because I loved them so, so much. The character development and everything that happens within their relationship and just with our female main character from the beginning and seeing how she is able to develop all the way to the end. There's also a second book on this couple as well. But guys, it is so, so amazing. It was so emotional. I'm pretty sure I have cried in every single book that I have read in the Boys and Tommen series so far. So definitely very emotional, but I just love these characters. Like, I genuinely feel like they are out there living their lives somewhere in the world. Obviously, they're not, but if I could be besties with these people, I would. And Amazon Prime is going to be making this into a series, so I am so, so excited to watch that when it comes out. I hope it gets the justice it deserves, and I know a lot of book to movie / show adaptations aren't always the best, but I have high, high hopes that Chloe Walsh will make sure that these characters get what they deserve in the Amazon Prime series. Next up, again from one of my all-time favorite authors, we have the 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston. Guys, 100% yes, I think this book deserves all of the hype it gets because it is so good. If you don't know, this book has magical realism in it. All of her other books also have magical realism in them, which I just think makes her stand out from a lot of other romance authors. This was very unique. I loved both of our characters so, so much. Again, this is another couple that I could follow from beginning to end and be happy. I literally wish this book could be longer because I just want to sit with these characters so much longer than I obviously was able to. It was definitely emotional, and the magical realism just really, really did it for me. Guys, if you haven't picked this book up yet, please, please pick it up. I am begging you. It deserves all the hype it gets. Next up, we have The Deal by Elle Kennedy, and this is the first book in the Off-Campus series. I'm sure all of you guys already know that this ended up being adapted into a TV show. In my opinion, yes, this book deserves all of the hype that it has gotten since the TV show has come out, and even before then. It took me way too long to pick up this book, and I am so sad it took me so long because I'm absolutely in love with this book, this couple, everything that has happened. And I would say, yes, this book deserves the hype, but it might not be for everybody. This is a hockey sports romance, and I would definitely say it might be a little bit cringy because this was written back in 2015. Some of the stuff that they say is definitely cringy along with some other things that happen. But obviously it fit the time of when this book was written, so it makes sense. Right now it's cringy, but when I was reading it, honestly, I was not mad. I was having a fantastic time. So I would 100% recommend you guys read this. And if you haven't read this yet or watched the show, I think you need to read the book. And then right after you read the book, you absolutely 1,000 million, 100% need to watch the show because guys, it was so good. I genuinely know that this is going to be a 5-star series, even though I haven't even finished reading the series. I just know. I know. Next up, we have Addicted to You by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is the first book in the Addicted Calloway Sisters series, and I would say, yes, I think this book deserves all of the hype. Again, this is another very emotional read that has some things that may be harder for people to read. So if you have any sort of triggers, I would definitely look up trigger warnings before jumping into the series, just because there are some really heavy topics surrounding addiction that are covered in this series. But guys, I absolutely loved this book, and I've loved all the other books that I have read in the series so far. It is very emotional, and our characters are very complex. There is a lot that goes into them, which I really appreciate, being able to like see why they have these addictions and actually get to know them more, because it makes the story feel even more real. And I just absolutely love this series, and I think you guys should read it if you haven't already. This definitely deserves the hype. Next book we have is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Again, this is another book that has been adapted into a movie, and again, I recommend you guys read the book first and then go watch the movie if you haven't already. But I 100% recommend you guys pick up this book, especially during the summertime, because hello, vacation. And this is just giving the best friends to lovers vibes. Guys, it is so cute. The two main characters I absolutely loved. Not only is there good chemistry, there's also a really good emotional connection, which I think sometimes romance books either weigh heavy on the physical chemistry or more of the emotional chemistry. And I think this book did both of those combined absolutely perfectly. So again, I 100% recommend you guys reading this if you haven't. Watch the movie as well, and just get all of the summer vibes from this book. Next up, I have Lightlark by Alex Astor. This book I actually found out about via TikTok, because when it first came out, the author came up on my For You page and I went and grabbed it. It did take me a while to actually read this book, and I'm currently in the middle of the second one on audiobook. I will say this book got a lot of hype, and there were a lot of mixed opinions on the BookTok community. And for me, I would say maybe. It is fun, and I felt like it was a fast-paced read. I just feel like it isn't that different than a lot of other things we've seen in the past. And it's not necessarily like copy and paste of things that we've already seen. It just doesn't feel like anything new or crazy unique to me, which kind of just made me feel a little bit bored, because it felt like I had already read or watched things that had the same plot line as this book. This was fast-paced and easy to read, and I feel like there was a lot of twists and turns that were happening throughout the story. But I will say I feel like the world building could have been a little bit better, but maybe, obviously, since I have only read the first book and am in the middle of the second book, maybe that gets better throughout the series. I don't know how many books are out in this series, but I do know there are quite a few more. But we will see. I think this definitely is a good book to listen to on audiobook, but I would say maybe it kind of just depends on where you land with fantasy itself. If you are newer to fantasy, maybe this would be something easier for you to get into, just because the world building isn't super crazy, so there's not a ton of, different things you have to follow and keep track of while reading. So I would say if that's something that sounds like you, then you would probably like this book. if you are more into heavy fantasy, a lot of world building, or heavy romantasy, this book probably wouldn't be something that you'd be interested in. Next up, we have Promise Me Sunshine by Caraval. Guys, I 100,000,000% recommend that you guys pick up this book. It is very emotional, very memorable. I think about this story so much, at least one time a week, if not more. This story definitely left a huge impact on me. I was able to relate very heavily to our female main character, and I just connected so strongly with this book as a whole, and I think that's why it made me love it even more. This was the first book I gave 5 stars this year. I feel like even though there were some heavy topics that were covered in this book, Caraval just did such a good job, to the point where when I finished this book, I was left with a lot of like good feelings, which might not be how a lot of people would think that this story would go if you read the back of the book, but I just absolutely loved it. Like, it genuinely just like makes me smile thinking about it and thinking about the characters. I love being able to follow our female main character's healing journey, and I also think that the male main character really just stood out from a lot of other male main characters that I have read in some other romance books. And I just think that the romance in here was so cute. It was strangers to friends to lovers, and it's just like everything that our male main character did for our female main character throughout this book. He was just so good, and he was exactly what she needed at this time. And again, I just felt such a strong connection to our female main character. I think this book 100% deserves all the hype it's gotten, and I think you guys need to pick it up if you haven't already. I am sure all of you guys have already heard about this book / this series, but we have ACOTAR by Sarah J. Maas, and yes, I think this book, this series deserves the hype. I haven't read this in such a long time, probably 3 years when I first started getting into reading, and I will say at the time it was mind-blowing to me. If I go back and reread it, I'm not sure how I would feel. The first book definitely is a little bit slower, but the rest of the series, very good. I will say I didn't enjoy the last book that is out so far as much as the other ones, but I think if you guys haven't read this yet and you enjoy fantasy, 100% pick up this series. See how you feel, because obviously it is so popular, and it is so popular and hyped for a reason. So in my opinion, yes, you guys should read it, and it does deserve the hype that it gets all over the BookTok community. We have another Emily Henry book, and that is Happy Place, and I would definitely recommend this to you guys, and I also think that it deserves all the hype that it gets, and I think that this is a great summer read to pick up. And I just loved the second chance romance. I love the friends and the relationships that we get with all of the characters in this book. And I just feel like it was such a fun read. It was definitely a little bit more emotional because of the romance that we have between the two main characters. There was just a lot that was happening, you know, like behind the scenes that not everybody knew of. But I just really liked the growth that we got to see in their relationship. I definitely think that this book is a little bit more than a romance. There's just like something sprinkled in there that gives it a little bit more emotional depth and emotion that we get to see from the characters. So I definitely recommend you guys pick this book up. It deserves the hype, and I think that if you guys haven't read it yet, this is the perfect time of year to pick up this book. Another one of my all-time favorite authors, Abby Jimenez. This is Just for the Summer, and yes, I recommend you guys pick this book up because it's Abby Jimenez, and I think that everybody should read all of the books that she has. I love this book. It was funny and also emotional, and I feel like our two main characters had a really good chemistry. I also wasn't expecting there to be as much depth in this book, in this story, as there was, so I think that is also another reason why I liked it so much. And I just loved the character development. I just loved our two main characters, and yes, I 100% think that this deserves the hype, and I think you guys should definitely pick this up. Of course, Just for the Summer, again, I think this is another book that is perfect for you guys to pick up during this summer season. Next up, we have Icebreaker by Hannah Grace, and honestly, I would probably say no, or maybe. It kind of just depends. I honestly haven't read too many sports romances, and this was one of the first that I had read at the time. And looking back on it, I didn't really enjoy it as much. And I think if I was to read it again or read it for the first time, where I am right now with my reading taste, I probably would say that no, it doesn't deserve the hype that it gets, just because I feel like it kind of dragged on. I also didn't feel like the two main characters were really emotionally connected, and I feel like that part was just lacking for me in this story. I definitely don't regret reading it. I just feel like it did get a lot of hype, which is one of the reasons why I picked it up, and I just feel like it didn't deserve all of the hype that it got. But again, that might be an unpopular opinion. I don't know. But I feel like there are other sports romances that are just better. So, in my opinion, no. The last book I have is Say You'll Remember Me by, again, Abby Jimenez, and I would say yes, I would recommend you guys read this book, and it deserves the hype it gets all over BookTok. This is definitely a little bit more of an emotional romance, and I'm not gonna lie, there were a couple of things that happened throughout the story that kind of just got on my nerves, but moving that to the side, I do think that overall this story was very enjoyable, and I would definitely recommend everybody pick this up. This definitely has a stronger romance in it. It also deals with some of the people in our female main character's family, which is kind of nice to see and see that more like family aspect. Like I said before, Abby Jimenez is one of my all-time favorite authors, so of course I'm going to say yes when recommending this book and if it deserves the hype. So if you guys haven't picked up this book yet, I also think this is a good time of year to pick this book up as well. Hopefully nobody comes after me for some of my potentially unpopular opinions throughout this video on some of these books, but those were all of the books that I think are overhyped or not overhyped all over BookTok. If you guys are going to add any of these books based on my recommendations and if I think they deserved the hype or not, definitely let me know in the comments. And if you guys want me to do like a part 2 to this book, obviously the BookTok community is huge and there are a lot of viral books all over BookTok and even BookTube that get a lot of hype or a lot of mixed opinions. So if you guys would like to see a part 2 to this video, definitely let me know as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to stay tuned for more videos from me, and happy reading!